So, isolation, working from home, no sport. Strategically placed Munster picture there behind column 2, I say. Love it. Jerome, how things have been in the O'Connell household? No sport, no GA.
No GA, yeah, it's a bit strange, all right. Needs must, I guess, we won't complain. It's all about getting out the far end of this, but we miss sport, but I suppose it puts it into shows us what the priorities should be, I guess.
Not only are you self-isolating, but you're also exiled in Clare, so you're walking around every day up and down the road in a Limerick jersey, reminding them of summers past.
Yeah, well, I can genuinely say that I'm one of those that's doing it as we should. I leave the house once a day for a family walk in a remote place, and that's about it. Other than that, it's the inside the house and back garden for the O'Connell household.
Fair play. Colm?
Yeah, something similar, Dan. I suppose 2 kids off school as well, so busy household. Thank God for Joe Wicks there the last few days. He's brilliant, isn't he? 800,000 views this morning. I think every school child and mother and father who were working from home were out doing the exercises on his YouTube channel. But yeah, it's surreal times, isn't it? I mean, like Jerome said there, you're always very conscious to do your bit for social distancing and following the protocols that are laid out. And I suppose it's just, wait and see how long we're going to be in this situation for.
Yeah, I suppose sport is your normal escape for everyone in everyday life, and then when there's no sport and there's obviously more serious things at hand. But Jerome, if I start with you on the GA side of things, kind of led the way there last week, really, didn't they? Shut things down, nice and smart, told everyone enough is enough. And you did a piece with John Cregan, Limerick County Chairman, saying, better honour this, lad, so we'll remember it for a long time to come.
Yeah, I think so, and I just was thinking about it in my column last week as well, that I suppose it has brought us back to basics. The GA came from the community. It's at the heart of the community. And, when you strip away the games and you strip away the flagship inter-county teams and the big games in Croke Park, it's all about community. And that's what it's brought it back to now, when you see, every GA club in the county offering the help that they can, the county boards, across the country offering their grounds and their administrative staff to assist the HSE in any way they can. And, that's the one good thing that's come from it from a sport point of view, that, we all love the games and we all love the victories and the excitement and all that. But, at the back of it, sport can be, a massive part of a community. And I think particularly with the GA, it has shown, the help that it can provide. And, in that regard, it will for the next number of weeks. We're going to miss the games, big time for the weeks and maybe months ahead. But certainly that community spirit, I think, has been reborn. And, as I wrote in the column, maybe it's a timely little reminder as well, when everything in the sport has become so professional for the last number of years, that when you strip it all the way back to community level, it's a great organisation.
Yeah, Colm, you're an active member of Monaleen GA Club. We've seen an awful lot of GA clubs around the country offering help to the elderly and, collecting prescriptions and shopping. It really is old school fabric of the community, everyone putting their shoulder to the wheel, because you only have one GA club. You can move in other sports, but you can't in the GA. Yeah,
it's been phenomenal, really. And it's been mirrored throughout the country. GA clubs mobilising, doing messages, walking dogs for the elderly, and other aspects. I suppose, I think there's the sort of a mental health side of it too, in the sense that, we're all at home, we're stuck inside 95% of the day or longer. And it's nice to get out. There's a feel-good factor in giving an hour or two each day, or whatever you can afford, to your community, to elderly people who aren't able to get out and about as much. And I think the GN and other sporting organisations, to be fair as well, have done phenomenal work. I suppose it's a bit surreal being a sports reporter at this time. Obviously, we've no games to go to. Working from home. Having said that, I have found, touch wood, so far, we're only start of week 2, that there's lots of stories and items and news items and sports items you can work on, work away. But you're always conscious in the back of your mind that at a time when you earn your livelihood from covering sport, that people out there are people being very, very sick. They're contracting this virus all the time. It's people have lost their jobs, and people will lose their jobs over the next weeks and months, unfortunately. And people are very sick. That at a time, like, it kind of puts sport in perspective on the one hand, but on the other hand, people, that couple of hours in their day, whether reading stuff, looking at stuff online, it gives them a break from news bulletins ad nauseum, social media full of doom and gloom stories, some of which we'd obviously seen are not true, but it gives them a break, so it's that balancing act, I suppose, between sport is very much in the background for a lot of people at the moment, but it also gives them that release valve for a while to see how sports guys are getting on, how they're coping. We've a lot of sports stars involved, amateur ones involved in medicine, be it nurses, be it doctors, whatever, who are playing a huge role, more than all the medical people are at the moment. So it's an interesting, very interesting time we live in.
In a weird way, Jerome, social media is showing us that the 15-yard, little dart pass off the top of the hurley should be perfected by the entire nation come the end of this. Everyone seems to be pucking a ball off a wall. There's always something you can do, I suppose. And again, the GA leading the way, and that social media side of things. See young Horrigan and from Cork and Reid from Kilkenny leading the charge with just working on their skills. And unfortunately, it's all you can do, isn't it?
Yeah, I can, and I think in Limerick as well, a number of the games development officers, probably headed up by Peter Nash, are putting up kind of daily tutorials for kids that, that can be practiced in your backyard, and you don't have to get in the car and head to the GA field and meet up with 6 or 7 other lads. These are just little drills that you can do all in your own back garden, clear a space in the bedroom, whatever, and I think that's probably important in these times, because as Colm alluded to earlier, or said earlier, there's a mental aspect to all this as well when you're indoors for so many hours and maybe not meeting as many people, physically as you would. And, those couple of minutes with the hurley in your hand, trying the little trick shots or just perfecting, the different skills that there is on your own, they're a nice break. And, I think that's an important part of our daily routine for the next number of weeks.
Well, Colin, you were mentioning earlier there about cutbacks across the board in all industries. The RFU came out last week. They've announced measures between 10 and 50% pay cuts across the entire staff. Rugby is very much, as you know and I know, a sport based on the money that the Six Nations brings in. Ireland is king, it's the cash cow, and when money is not coming in, money has to be stopped going out, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I suppose we were maybe surprised by how quickly that decision was taken, that, you would think maybe that the RFU wouldn't need to take these steps until maybe a month down the line or 2 months down the line. But the fact that it's come early, obviously our top level professional rugby players, they earn good money. They put their bodies on the line, week in and week out. It's a tough, physical, demanding game. It's a short career, and they will get the income they're owed further down the line when hopefully we get to the end of coronavirus. But as you said, like the gate receipts from a game like that Italian match, which has been postponed in the Six Nations. I think it's something in the order of €7 million, I think, in gate receipts, ballpark. So it just shows that, as you said, the national team is the cash cow. Everything is stopped at the moment, from grassroots rugby right up to the top end. Obviously, huge uncertainty about the Guinness Pro 14. When will it resume? Will it resume? You've got cross borders there. You've got the Italians, obviously, and we all know from watching media, how badly hit Italy has been by coronavirus. So when would the two Italian teams be in a position to resume? When will obviously ourselves be in a position to resume, and the Welsh, Scottish, South African side? So real doubt there, Dan, I think, as to whether the Pro 14 will resume. And obviously, decision taken last week that a line has been drawn under the Energy All-Ireland League and all the domestic rugby action for the rest of the season. Again, a decision that was made quickly, but it's taken the doubt out of players' minds. They know now exactly that they won't be playing any more club rugby for the rest of this year. They've acted quickly. So that's cut short, and obviously very disappointing for some clubs who are, in the promotion race or going to win a league title. But then on the flip side, you have the teams down at the bottom who are fighting relegation, who breathe a huge sigh of relief and went, thank God we learn lessons from this year and we'll come back better and stronger in the 2021 season.
There's one thing, Jerome, that Colm touched on there as well about teams and seasons ending for rugby and the RFU pay cuts, all that. Teams by their very nature operate in groups. And we saw this week the Munster Council coming out and saying that they give extra time to the minor football championship and teams to prepare. We do forget that if someone said, 5 weeks' time, this will all be gone, it's going to take 3 or 4 of those to get a team ready to take the pitch at any level, never mind minor football, which has already been pushed back 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think so. I've seen a couple of strength and conditioning coaches in the media suggesting that, teams will almost need another pre-season period. Now, I do think that, in extraordinary times, measures can change, and the fact that from a GA side of things, at senior into county level, players are so fit and so well programmed at the moment that, I think they will be able to get back on the field fairly quickly. They're still all working on their individual gym levels as best they can from their homes and things like that. But I do think, fingers crossed, and sooner rather than later, when we do get the all clear to return to some normality, that I think players and spectators alike will be just absolutely keen to get back on the field as soon as possible. In what shape or form that will be, only time will tell, because with every passing week, the weeks of the year are running out.
There's one major sporting elephant in the room at the moment, Colm. I get Jerome's thoughts on it too. The Olympics still hasn't been called. Madness at this stage. There's just no point in having it. And even from a media point of view, you were saying they're working on stories. To have an Olympics next year when all this is over and the storylines that come out of that alone will be phenomenal. But I suppose money at the moment is the one that's holding up the sponsors, maybe?
Yeah, you would think so, John, but it just can't happen. It just can't happen. You have, we've seen the Australians, I think the Canadians have come out and said they're not going to take part. I think there's a statement due from the Irish Olympic Council at some stage later today on it. Pressure is going to mount, and I would imagine within the next 24 hours, 48 hours, an announcement will be made that the Olympics have been postponed. There are so many sports at this stage that don't even have a full complement of athletes qualified for. We saw last week in London, a bit surreal. We were talking about working from home, and the Olympic qualifying bouts were being streamed live. And working from home, I would have looked in and looked out through them on Monday and Tuesday, the Irish boxers taking part, obviously, and see how they got on. But it was absolutely surreal. They did it behind closed doors, first of all, and then they ultimately announced they were going to abandon the qualifying event. But that's only one sport, boxing, and there's due to be a second boxing tournament as well for qualifying for Irish boxers and other sports as well. So at this stage, the sooner they make a call on it, the better. And just announced on that it's been postponed until 2021, the better.
John?
Yeah, I have to agree. I just think you can't see how it goes ahead. You've got the qualifying element of it, and look, from an Irish point of view, we only have an actual handful of athletes that are qualified in the various disciplines at this stage. So that just shows the volume of qualifying competitions that are still to take place. You've also got the number of countries that would, quite soon and probably around now be planning to head for, warm weather or, high altitude training camps and things like that. In an era when, flights and commercial flights like that are closing down every single day, it just simply can't happen. And I think even if it were to happen, it would be just for the sake of it. It would be somewhat tarnished in that what number of athletes would actually be there. It's hard to know. As much knowledge you'd love to see it go ahead, I think it would be the sensible option now to call it off and allow people to start planning for the following summer.
Last few minutes of our podcast. I know, Jerome, 9 times out of 10 you sit at home at night watching GA Gold anyway, so I'll come to you in a minute about what people should be watching on TV these days. Colm, as a man who follows all sports across all eras, what's the must watch for sports fans on YouTube, Netflix, Amazon Prime?
Have to say, Don, I really enjoyed the Diego Maradona documentary on Saturday night on Channel 4. I thought it was excellent. Still available to watch for people who missed it on their website or player, Channel 4 player. I understand we'll be able to access it from here as well as in the UK, obviously. I like the 30 for 30 series. I've been a big fan of Series 1 and Series 2. So much stuff available there. Fantastic documentaries based on some of the world's top sports stars. A lot of American sport covered there. So great viewing there. Netflix has some excellent stuff. Great documentary on Sunderland on it. I don't know if you've seen that one, but there's loads of stuff to watch there, to be fair. And it's great to see TG Carr. You mentioned to Jerome there. It's great to see TG Carr showing some old matches over the last couple of weeks, and they'll continue to do so. There's a great appetite for GA. I mean, I was just a
lot better for Tipperary man now because by pure numbers alone, every second or third night is a bloody All Ireland win at this stage.
I'm not going to mention that the 1980 All Ireland hurling final is being shown next Sunday, Don, but I was just looking there. I mean, it's remarkable. I just saw a copy of the Leader sports section from 12 months ago next weekend, and it was front page was previewing the National Hurling League final. Limerick and Waterford, and also preview Munster's European Heineken Champions Cup quarter final. So it just shows, you look at this time last year, 12 months ago, so many big games to look forward to, big days out, and now at the moment everything's just shut down, and it's amazing. It's remarkable, isn't it?
Yeah, crazy. Jerome, the 1980 final, we won't be watching that one, but how many times have you watched the 2018 final since you've been in lockdown?
Yeah, it's one of the good memories we could watch, right? And it's probably a bit unfortunate that there is this whole rights deal wrangle going on. I've seen a lot of people on social media giving out priority or maybe showing some of the old games, but it appears that, although they broadcast them day one, they don't actually own the archive footage, which is actually owned by the GA and some of it owned by Air Sport even. So I do think as the weeks go on, we might see a little loosening of that arrangement to allow for games, because like we said earlier, it's the water cooler conversation. People just love to talk about sport, be it historical sport or sport that has just happened. And for a lot of people, the Sunday afternoon is to sit down and watch a couple of games, and with that taken away from them, and with the option to maybe leave the house and travel to seaside resort or whatever, not advised. I think it's great to fill those couple of hours for people that are housebound and can watch it. And there's an amount of games that can be shown back, and for people that are probably watching us, they're YouTube savvy, and there's absolute endless hours of gold there. And I've seen a number of GA clubs in recent times, I think Drumculloch or Broadford or one in Limerick, that have started to maybe just tag in a couple of their old games and highlights of games down the years that people can watch in the evenings or those Sunday afternoons.
I'm sure both of you have realised as you watch back some of the, Colm, you mentioned it there, Maradona documentary and All Ireland goal that we've seen, some old rugby YouTube matches I've watched as well the last couple of days. There are obviously no referees, there were certainly no rules. I mean, grievous bodily harm. I mean, when we go back to watch sport now, it'll be soft, for want of a better word, compared to what we saw in the 80s, particularly poor Maradona in his time in Spain.
Yeah, just something I saw down there recently was the Leinster hurling final between Offaly and Wexford. I think it was 96. It was shown on a Saturday afternoon, last Saturday week, and some of the incidents that went on, and some of the belts that guys got with hurleys, and not even a free, let alone a yellow card or a red. It was
no helmets.
No helmets exactly, bar a couple at that stage who wore it from the time they were started playing first as a child. Yeah, exactly. No helmets for majority of them. But you mentioned Maradona, yeah, exactly. You know, it's a different world in terms of refereeing nowadays, and we talk about diving and guys going down in sports and whatever. But yeah, Maradona didn't get much protection from referees. Nor did Pele. They tell me, Don, but not even I remember Pele playing. You know.
All right, 20 minutes in. That's enough, I think, for today in our first ever coronavirus video podcast. Well, at least we got there in the end. So my thanks to Jerome McConnell and to Colm Kinsella. And fingers crossed we're all back here on Monday week. And the more important thing is, as Jerome and Colm both said, stay safe, keep that social distancing, and we'll all be back watching sport for real soon. Thanks a million.
Thanks.